The presentation is being recorded today. So if you have any concerns with that, drop off. But just by being in, it is being recorded. So yeah, and yeah, if we can all stay on mute, that'd be great. Thank you. So okay, look, by way of introduction, so Carolyn, can you just flip to the next slide, please? Get the presentation going. Okay, whilst we're waiting for the presentation to pop up, I'll introduce myself. So my name's Glenn Dashwood. I'm the head of operations for the Portable Long Service Leave Authority. I'll be running through the presentation today, hopefully being able to give you enough of a bit of a context, enough to answer a few questions of where we actually sit with the authority. Before we get going, we'd like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples and traditional owners and custodians of the land and waterways on which we live. We honour and pay our respects to elders past and present and any First Nations people with us today. I'm presenting today from the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people in Galkangu, so Bendigo Gov Hub, which is the new home of PLSA. We're quite excited about that. So Galkangu means build together. We make together, make things happen together, so more connected to country. So throughout Galkangu building, it affirms Dja Dja Wurrung's rights as traditional owners. So values of recognition, respect and reconciliation are actually expressed in the built form and invite a vision of the future through the ongoing partnership with Dja Dja Wurrung clans and Aboriginal corporation. JARA is the name of the corporation, and that coordination with the state government. So next slide, please, Carolyn. So what is Portable Long Service? So Victoria's Portable Long Service Scheme means workers in community services, contract cleaning and security can accrue long service entitlements and transfer them from job to job. The scheme puts eligible workers who move between employers within their industry on equal footing with workers who stay with a single employer, providing long service entitlements after 7 years, regardless of how many contracts they have had in that time. Supporting workers within industries which are often lower paid and have lower levels of job security. And next slide, please. Under the scheme, employers register their workers, report their service each quarter and pay a levy based on that service, which is then used to pay out long service at the appropriate time. A process which is undertaken via a portal to ensure employers can manage their reporting and workers can easily see their entitlements. So, who pays for the scheme? Employers pay a levy ranging between 1.65 and 1.8% of workers' wage to fund benefits. The levy paid by employers or invested by the authority will fund the entitlements and the ongoing operation of the scheme. Employers are required to pay the levy each quarter that's based on the time worked and the ordinary wages paid to their workers as reported in their quarterly returns. Levy payments are payable within 14 days and can be paid via BPay or EFT. The levy is set by the governing board and is currently at 1.65% of workers' ordinary wages for community services, 1.8% of workers' ordinary wages for contract cleaning sector. Next slide, please, Carolyn. So, our particular industries. What is cleaning work? The contract cleaning industry is where employers are contracted to carry out cleaning work by a third party and employ workers to perform this work. Under the scheme, the definition is quite broad. Cleaning work is any work that aims to bring premises into or maintain a clean condition. Premises can include part or all of any land or structure. This even includes cleaning areas like swimming pools and their surrounding grounds. So who's eligible? Victorian employers that are engaged in the contract cleaning industry and employ at least one other person to undertake cleaning work must register for the Portable Long Service Authority. This includes employers that employ workers to perform cleaning work on behalf of another organisation engaged in the cleaning industry. Self-employed workers performing cleaning work for another person or organisation can choose to register for the scheme. They will be required to meet employer obligations and will receive entitlements to Portable Long Service benefits as well. Next slide, please. Community service work. So the community services sector is where community services work is undertaken that provides training and employment, financial accommodation, home care and other supports for people with disability or people who are otherwise vulnerable, disadvantaged or in crisis. This can include community legal, education, advocacy services, community development services, fundraising assistance for community groups, and services to assist cultural and linguistically diverse communities. From 1 January 2020, an activity funded by the NDIS, as well as services provided by non-profit licensed children's services and approved providers under the Education and Care Services National Law, are included in the scheme as community services work. Employers in the community services sector who have workers performing work in Victoria must register for the Portable Long Service Scheme, and they are a non-profit entity employing at least one person to perform community services work, an entity for profit that employs at least one person to perform community service work for people with disability, registered community health centres and women's health services. To be eligible for portable long service in community service sectors, workers are employed by an eligible employer for the scheme, covered by one of the 5 community services sector awards included in the long service benefits portability regulations. These awards are very broad and cover most workers in the sector. The awards are the Social Community Home Care and Disability Services Industry Award 2010, the Children's Services Award 2010, the Education Services Teachers Award 2010, the Labour Market Assistance Industry Award 2020, and the Supported Employment Services Award 2020. So what if your workers aren't covered by an award or don't have an enterprise agreement? If you're an employer in the community services sector, then it is unlikely that you have true award-free employers. Even if they are employed under a contract or employment or the national employment standards, they will still be included. The SHADS award is a broad industry award applying to nearly every worker in the community services sector, even those in supervisory and managerial roles. The Fair Work Commission will have assessed any enterprise agreement against the appropriate award. Next slide, please, Carolyn. So security work. Under the Portable Long Service Benefit Scheme, the security industry is where security activities are undertaken by people licensed or registered under Private Security Act 2004. This includes both Class A and Class B security services. Class A security services require a licence and include acting as an investigator, acting as a bodyguard, acting as a crowd controller, acting as a security guard, including while exercising control over a dog, while armed with a firearm, while unarmed and collecting, transferring, delivering cash or valuables while armed. The protecting, guarding, watching of any property by monitoring or operating a security system, acting as a private security trainer. So Class B security services require registration, and they include the installation, repair, service or maintenance of any security equipment systems, such as camera systems, audio and visual recording systems, alarms and alarm monitoring systems, safes and vaults, security intrusion detectors, and electric, electromagnetic, magnetic or biometric access control devices, or acting as a security advisor. So who's not? Victorian employers that are engaged in the security industry and employ at least, who's eligible, who's not? Victorian employers that are engaged in the security industry and employ at least one other person to undertake security work must register for the Portable Long Service Authority. To be eligible for portable long service in the security industry, workers must be employed by an employer for the scheme, as outlined above. And the worker's predominant activity for their substantive role, not acting role or secondment, must be security work. Eligible workers include apprentices, casuals, any individuals with employment agreements requiring them to learn security work. This includes employers that employ workers to perform security work on behalf of another organisation engaged in the security industry. Workers registered with the Construction Industry Portable Long Service Scheme, Co-Invest, may be eligible to register for the Portable Long Service if one of the following circumstances applies. The Co-Invest levy is no longer being paid by the employer and the worker remains on the Co-Invest register, or the Co-Invest levy is being paid by an employer and the worker also performs work for an employer in the covered industry. There are many circumstances where employers will be registered with both PLSA and Co-Invest, reporting workers to the appropriate scheme depending on the predominant nature of the work undertaken. Next slide, please, Carolyn. Okay, so what happens to existing long service? Portable long service leave doesn't affect any traditional long service leave you have accrued in your current job. You can continue to accrue and use traditional long service entitlements as you'll also build up entitlements for portable long service leave. The only difference is that if you change employers but remain in the industry, you can take your portable long service entitlement with you. Entitlements for workers with PLSA remain for 4 years from the date of ceasing eligible employment within Victoria. At present, where an employee is entitled to their traditional long service, the employer provides the entitlements as they normally would. The employer is then able to make a reimbursement claim from PLSA for the registered entitlements. Once a worker has been registered with the PLSA for 7 years, the employer would pay out any traditional long service prior to the worker becoming eligible for the scheme. Then the worker will then be able to make direct claim to PLSA for the registered entitlements. Next slide, please. So how do I register? So if you're an employer in the community services sector, contract cleaning or security industries in Victoria, with workers engaged to perform work in the industries, you're required to register with the Portable Long Service Authority. So you can register via actually jumping on our website, which is accessible via the VicGov website, Employer Entitlement Portable Long Service Leave. And once an employer has registered, they will be required then to complete quarterly returns. For a worker, if you work in the same industry for multiple employers, each employer must register you in the scheme. If one of your employers hasn't registered you, you should contact them in the first instance to ensure they are aware of the scheme. If your employer is registered with the Portable Long Service Authority, you can seek clarification about why they haven't registered you and even provide them with your worker ID. Once you have your worker ID, you should register for access to the worker portal. Through the portal, you'll be able to track your employer contributions, current accrual under the scheme, update your address and phone number, and access your annual statements. So you can log in via the portal, via the website, and we can certainly add those links and so forth through into the chat. If your employer has not registered you, you must first check if they have registered, and you can actually look up, we've got a search on the portal where you can actually look up which employers are registered. Next slide, please. So what happens if I don't register if I am eligible? So a company who fails to register for the scheme faces penalties up to $22,000 per day for each day that they fail to register. In some instances, an employer may have failed to register since 2019. For individuals, it is up to $4,438 per day. At present, our position is we're actively pursuing employers to be registered so that we can actually get them in the scheme. And that's our priority prior to actually taking prosecution actions. For workers, the levy paid by employers and invested by the authority will fund ongoing operations for the scheme. Next slide, please. So some of our successes. So over 270,000 registered workers now, approaching around the 300,000 mark. So 177,000 working in community services, 66 in contract cleaning, and 27,000 of security guards. So that's coming from now over 3,000 registered employers. Next slide, please, Carolyn. So if you do wish to contact the authority and you have any further queries or questions beyond today, feel free to contact us. So 1-800 number will take you through to our customer service team. And we also have then our inquiries at plsa.vic.gov.au. We also have a number of access, there's information through our social media, so please follow us on our social media sites. And then we also have the ability for you to access our website, really valuable information that's on our website. We've got information specifically for employers, specifically for workers. There's fact sheets there around how to actually assist in determining those eligibilities. And there's guidance around how to actually go about the how to go about registering and undertaking the quarterly returns process. So we do. So that's the end of the formal presentation for now. We do have a couple of questions that is actually coming in through the chat at present. So I will go through. I think the team are starting to respond to a few of those. So just actually in relation to. Okay, so in relation to there's a response there, and one of the questions that does come up regularly is in relation to what money is or isn't returned through to employers. The entitlements are actually held in the account for those workers for that 4-year period, so that those entitlements are actually there should they actually shift and change between employers. The structure of the way that it has actually worked is so that we can't presume when somebody leaves a particular employer that those entitlements, that they won't actually be going back into work at any period in the future. Or we have had some questions around what happens with employees that are actually approaching retirement age, but we can't assume that those staff won't actually pick up work further down the track. So those entitlements are actually held for that 4-year period. In relation to the funds, those funds are actually held still to those funds that are put forward toward the entitlements. They don't get siphoned off. They don't end up in other parts of government or anything. They actually stay within that pool for those entitlements for workers. So if there is someone who has actually reached that 4-year point and they have actually gone off the scheme, those funds are actually still held in that same account for entitlements for workers, and that covers through in relation to helps assist to cover entitlements for staff with pay rises over a period of time, with cost of inflation, making sure people actually get those entitlements that they're eligible for. Were there any other burning questions anyone else wanted to pop into the chat at this time? We do have a few minutes left, or so there's a query here in relation to regarding the funds that are held, how are they invested. So now I might get the name of it wrong, so I apologise, but it's the Victorian Funds Management Corporation. So there is actually it is actually held and invested in a similar way to I guess the way the funds are held and invested for, so for example, a super fund. So they are there. So it is actually does sit separately to any operational costs. So that's how they're invested. If an employee dies, the government would still keep the levy. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's actually not the government necessarily holding it. It is actually that separate account specifically for worker entitlements that is actually held by the PLSA. So we are an independent authority. How long? So there's a query here in relation to the time it takes to receive the funds. So it can actually vary depending on the nature of the information that comes through. The team are actually processing those a lot more quickly now than had previously been the case. We've actually worked with a lot of employers on refining the process for making those reimbursement claims so that they can actually come back in a timely manner. So certainly it isn't a long and drawn out process. It should be back within that within a matter of weeks once those claims are actually submitted, depending on the information and so forth that comes through. So there is actually a considerable amount of information on the website in relation to what gets captured in ordinary pay. So I won't go through all of the detail on that right now, because there is. So I would actually guide you through to the website so that you can actually look at what is actually included in that ordinary pay component. So I apologise. My screen has actually frozen, and I'm actually now not getting information through. So I apologise. My screen has now frozen. So I hope you can all actually hear me. Look, thank you very much for your time today. I hope I've been able to provide you with a bit more context in relation to the way that the scheme actually works, and any information that you're after. I do, if you can all hear me properly still, I do encourage you, jump on the website, have a look. There's some links within the previous. We'll get the team, make sure that we get some links within the chats, so that you're able to actually access those information. Feel free to pop a few more questions in there. The team will keep answering those as they go. But thank you once again. Feel free to reach out to the authority if you've got any concerns or questions around how it relates directly through to your organisation. Please certainly, we like to, as best as possible, make sure that we can actually deal with those specifics to actually support you making those decisions to ensure you're actually able to make those right decisions and register all of the employers to make sure they get the entitlements that they, all of your workers to make sure they get the entitlements that they are entitled to. So look, thank you all very much for your time today. I'm gonna jump off, and if there's any further queries, please pop them in the chat or through the inquiries email or give us a call. Thank you.